Hey everyone, have I here been a video on Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. In this video, where are all the EZAs in this year's worldwide celebration? We'll talk about it. So with that, if you're new to my channel, like, subscribe, comment below, do all that good stuff. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So really, honestly, I'm not widely always knowing what the community's thinking about in certain units or celebrations, but when it actually disseminates to me, I know it becomes kind of a bigger deal. And what I've been hearing recently is that this celebration is quote unquote bad or it's dead. And I'm kind of going, oh, is it bad? Is it dead? So I started to, just kind of look in the history. And I would say a lot of people are saying this because of a lack of EZAs. So the reason why this feels this way, because last year it was a lot more activity in terms of this type of content. So as of right now, we have technically only gotten 2 EZAs in the 2024 worldwide celebration, and one of them was part of the countdown in Team Turles. And then we recently, of course, got the little underwhelming or situational Legendary Super Saiyan Int Broly's EZA. And that is pretty much about it. So why are people commenting saying, well, it's dead, it's a bad celebration? It was because last year's celebration was riddled with EZAs. It was like constant EZAs, and it was, in a sense, a lot of content. And this year, not so much. So let's take a stroll down memory lane from last year, which started 8/26, 8/27, depending on your time zone. Last year's worldwide celebration, Beyond Space and Time, basically the Future Saga, we started really quickly with EZAs. So the celebration 8/27, around that time, banners dropped around that time as well. So literally 3 or 4 days later, we ended up getting 2, not 1, but 2 Dokkan Festival exclusives and 2 sub EZAs, and all 4 of these were very relevant to teams, right? AGL Zamasu, or AGL Transforming Zamasu, was an incredible unit to go along with the Dokkan Festival exclusive Zamasu. It was very, very good. Even the Int Mai on here was extremely good, and Gowasu Zamasu was a fantastic support as well. So that happened on 9/1, or the end of August and beginning of September, and we were just like getting started, which was again pretty crazy, because just a few days later, a week later, we got another Dokkan Festival exclusive in EZAing the support future Gohan. Right, so this was in a span of, from when it started to here, about 1.5 weeks, and we ended up getting 3 Dokkan Festival exclusives EZAing and 3 sub EZAs. That is absolutely wild compared to what is happening now, because when you look at that now, right, you can make the comparison now. Oops, actually, let me finish up with the remaining EZAs, and then we'll go back to the comparison. So this is part 1, and then when part 2 drops, we ended up getting a bunch of sub EZAs, and I would say these are all relevant as well. Well, maybe not the Tech Future Gohan, but the AGL Trunks and Mai was very good. STR Trunks was okay, and the Int Zamasu was a great substitute for the AGL Zamasu, right? So those were those units there. So yeah, these were very strong overall. Then you had, so I moved these up over here. So after this, toward the end, we had another Dokkan Festival exclusive EZA in the absurdly bad for a long time Int Goku Black. And then when all other people said, no, that's it, that's all we're going to get, things of that nature, and I was very adamant about, we're going to get a Rosé something, we did end up getting the LR EZA 2 Rosé. Now, little did I know, I didn't think that we were going to get a Dokkan Festival exclusive Rosé a few months later, right? I didn't know that was going to happen, but this ended up dropping on 10/3, basically at the end of the celebration for last year, right? So when you look at this, again, and make, in a sense, the comparison to part 1, right? This is, everything that we're doing here, but comparison to part 1, this is the reason why a lot of people are like, man, it's dead. The celebration is not good comparable to others. But remember, last year it was an anomaly. If you kind of look at years past, there wasn't as many EZAs as it was last year. It was just coming off of a year that had an incredible amount of EZAs, and this is what we compare with. Now, again, I don't think in the past we only had one and no sub EZAs, and I'll talk about kind of the sub EZA that it's like a no-brainer that they should have EZA'd as a part of this. But again, we might get in part 2 because we don't know everything. So one of the differences too is that we got in this Worldwide Celebration versus last year's Worldwide Celebration, we got both Dokkan Festival exclusives in part 1, and then we got the carnivals in part 2. This year it's split up. Dokkan Festival exclusive Carnival, Dokkan Festival exclusive Carnival. So maybe they're just holding it out for part 2. Again, we don't know at the time of recording this video here. So when you look at everything that last year brought, right, is a lot. Comparable just right with part 1 here, it's just, okay, we got one EZA. This is why part 2 needs to be incredibly good, so that the community doesn't burn the house down. So it's the natives are getting restless right now, right? So, and the community in of itself are just really, I think the celebration is fine, right, for comparable to like other celebrations, but I think from the cusp of last year's Worldwide Celebration, everybody's comparing it to it, and you can see why, right? There was just so much that happened last year. So what does Dokkan have to do, right? So we know, hey, this is our sole EZA, and because this was not a super OP EZA, which they could have easily made it, right? Again, comparing it to over here, if we go back over here, comparing it to like the first EZAs that came out, these were all relevant, even transforming Trunks. But like this guy, right, it was best in slot pairing up with the Merzumasu, whereas this guy, you pair up with the Broly, but it's situational, right? It's certain events that he's very, very good at. They could this is what all they could have easily done, right? With this, with all the enemy conditions, stuff like that, right? For 4 turns, damage mitigation 50%, right? They could have just easily, or for 4 turns guard, something like that, so that this unit can build up and not have to deal with the first or second turn of just getting absolutely slaughtered if they're not fighting a Pure Saiyans or whatever the other condition is, or Goku, right? If you're not fighting that particular enemy, this isn't a, kind of very overall useful. Whereas if you look at this unit here, yeah, you can use this unit anyway. It's still relevant today. It still needs to build up, but it's and transform, but still it's nowhere near the maybe inefficiency of other event usage for this Broly here. So that's where we are right now. This is the biggest question, was like, well, this EZA, how the heck did they not sub EZA this unit, right? This Trunks unit that is actually a great Hybrid Saiyans support unit. It would have been actually good for certain teams that LRGGT can run on, but this is literally, this unit here is represented in LRGGT. Literally, right? So it's a unit super attack. It's a unit that has a unit super attack with Super Saiyan Gohan in the background. If you're able to run with Gohan Youth, you get a unit super attack. And look at the guys in the back of LRGGT. It's the other G and the T right there. So this was a very unusual scenario where like, okay, great, you drop the Broly, and then hey, you drop the sub EZA as well. I expect this unit to be EZA'd in part 2, right? Which again, I'm not sure why they waited, but I guess we'll find out soon, right? Or the 13th is when part 2 ends up dropping. So then you have, of course, I expect this to still EZA. Of course, the one that they cannot mess up on. They cannot mess up on EZA LR Tech Broly. All right, it's a Super Saiyan Broly that transforms into Legendary Super Saiyan. Right now, there is a really not, we have another Super Saiyan Broly that you can use in the movie, the movie Broly, the full power Broly, right? So he's not going to link up with that unit very well. So that becomes problematic. If you're running a full team, you're like, okay, well, if you're running it on the same position and he's not a first position unit, he's a second position unit, he's not going to link up well with the other Broly. But either way, they cannot mess up on this, because this one has to be much better than the Dokkan Festival exclusive Legendary Super Saiyan Broly Int version. But this also then has to be as good or around the goodness of greatness of AGL Super Saiyan Broly from the movie Broly. So yeah, this is where I'm the most worried about, is when they drop this unit. Again, it will be sometime in part 2 that they're going to drop this, and it's a 99.9% chance that they will EZA this unit here. Now, if they don't drop it in part 2, we might have to wait all the way like we did for Rosé. Like, you know, going back over here, like this was like, okay, all these EZAs happen. It's like, oh, how come? It's crazy that we're not going to get EZA Rosé. Why is this never going to happen? Then all of a sudden, basically at the end of the celebration, we got the EZA. That can happen, boys and girls, right? That can happen. So just in a sense, watch out for that. And if he doesn't show up in part 2, which in my opinion he will, we have to wait until all the way until the end of the celebration, and then we might get him right at the end of the celebration. Hopefully we don't. So they cannot mess up on this unit. They just cannot do it. All right, for the movie boss's team's sake. The other thing is that they're probably going to end up, you know, EZAing is, of course, the free-to-play Bio Broly, as there's no other Bio Broly. Could we get a Dokkan Festival exclusive Bio Broly in Part 2 celebration? We might. Could we get a summonable LR and a just kind of a wacky banner that they end up dropping? Sure. They can do multiple things with Bio Broly. Not too sure on that. However, the other Dokkan Festival exclusive EZA that also has to happen in the celebration is the boys. I mentioned this in the timeline video that I just recently did there, but this has to happen because this makes no sense to only Dokkan Festival to only EZA one Dokkan Festival exclusive unit in this major celebration. Finally, the Super EZA. I think many people have already talked about this on here. That makes a lot of sense to do it now, because we have so many other Legendary Super Saiyan Brolys that can come in the future, right? With a physical one, we also have the OG LR 90% LR one as well. But this unit here needs to be the substitution of I should stop saying the absolute failure, right? Again, it's a situational unit, but it needs to be better than this guy. It needs to be more usable than this guy in a overall sense in other fights, right? But I don't know. It's a very old unit. It's a blank canvas what they can do with this unit here. So that's what I'm expecting there. Now, there are some big question marks on possible ending EZAs. That's maybe not this, because this could also end the celebration there, but they could also add a few other EZAs in the celebration to make it kind of at least maybe be as good. I don't think it's going to be as good as last year, but comparable for last year. And that they can have an option to EZA some of these movie heroes. Yes, I know it's more movie bosses and Broly, right? But these are some movie hero EZAs that they could drop. We have 3 Yellow Coin LRs. We have a Dokkan Festival exclusive Super Gogeta. Tapion, I probably not. Goku and Piccolo, better probability, and then also Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, a better probability. But if they're going to do like a Bojack celebration, they'll probably just wait for that. So I would say this unit or this unit is the more probable one for movie heroes if they EZA somebody in movie heroes. Movie bosses, on the other hand, it's slim pickings. It's slim pickings, right? Because it could make sense for them to EZA this guy here, but Lord Slug might get its own celebration, right? I think the Janembas are going to get their own celebration, and Bojack's going to get its own celebration. So I don't really see that these are going to EZA in this celebration, because again, it's Broly, not technically movie bosses, but they could, right? They could, if they go, you know what, let's throw them a bone for these Turles and Slug here, or maybe this Bojack. I don't foresee them do. I think they'll do their own Bojack celebration there. So anyway, so these are some options there, but the final option is kind of a unusual option, is just the uncontrollable power, right? This is the new category, which is currently right now not that good, right? Not that good at all. This is why a lot of people are thinking Bio Broly as the Dokkan Festival exclusive LR, right? So again, Janemba, I think it's going to get its own celebrations. So, but these are possibilities. They're all uncontrollable power. Some of the androids are on here as well for uncontrollable power. And then if they don't do a Super Dragon Ball Hero celebration, they have to start slotting these in the general pool, which they would then have to. That's going to be a different discussion, is if they're going to move the superheroes units as a general pool, or they just gone forever because Super Dragon Ball Heroes is now discontinued in Japan. One of these could happen, I guess. But yeah, again, this would have a big question mark here. Just more speculation than any type of fact or backup that I have on there. So these are some options, right? Movie heroes, movie bosses, uncontrollable power are some options there. But anyway, that's kind of where we're standing here in EZAs in comparison to last year. And basically comparing it to last year is a bad comparison, right? It's a tough comparison because they provided so much, and just I wouldn't expect this amount of EZAs ever again in a celebration, because they just had a lot of Future Saga units, right? It was just, they just said, we just gotta data dump all this in this one celebration, whereas this celebration here, it's not as much, right? It's very sprinkled around. I was kind of looking at like relevant units that haven't EZA'd yet. I was like, well, there's not that many in reality regarding this type of celebration. So anyway, those are my thoughts there. Tell me what you guys think. Is this because the EZAs, or you feel like this is a really garbage celebration? I think it's fine, right, to say the least, but they've made a few hiccups here and there, but we gotta wait till the end and see if they make up everything. But if you're new to my channel, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. Keep on Dokkaning. We'll catch you next time. Later.